And Maeve is in the house. Good morning, Maeve. Oh, she's gone.
I'm not gone.
We're just being a woman of mystery once more. Oh, all my favourite people are in. Good. Oh, Maeve, you look good. Oh, I'm loving a bit of the necklace work. Love a bit of blue.
That's lovely.
I think it's green, but okay.
Is this
Turquoise?
I was going to say, is that like that internet dress? Do you remember the dress where some people?
Oh, yeah.
And I never saw the other. What was it meant to be? Blue and gold, wasn't it?
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
never.
Hello, Doug. I remember.
Hi.
Now, Doug, we obviously, and Mary, you're a legend. We have so much to talk about with you all, and I think, Maeve, we're focusing on audience dissemination and stuff today. Was that your focus?
Yes, audience dissemination, and I have an additional for you if it fits or if it doesn't. But how to file better. I'm just not particularly good at it. And I don't mean filing papers in a cabinet. I mean comprehending your desktop, or, you know, I mean,
wow. Yes.
Somehow being better at that. Like, what happens to me? But anyway, I'll tell you what happens.
So digital organisation.
Hey, Jane.
You've got that, and Jane's in. Can I live without Jane? I can't live without Jane.
No.
Jane, no. So no, it's over. So Jane, you have just changed our lives. But look, we do need to start with Doug before I get to the very important matters about research dissemination and so forth. Doug, what is going on with your tattoo?
Oh, you like it?
Look, I do. I'm surprised by it. So
yeah, it's a cyberpunk geisha.
It's a cyberpunk geisha.
Yeah.
So Thomas is in. So he'll obviously, he studies cyberpunk geisha. So he'll obviously be offering some commentary shortly. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thomas has gone, cyberpunk geisha. I heard my name. Doug, I thought it was a bit of a mermaid structure, to be honest myself. I went straight to mermaid. Am I wrong?
No, it's wrong. That's wrong.
It doesn't have a tail. It doesn't have
doesn't have a tail. It doesn't have a body. It has the bottom with no legs, like it's been ripped off. And
yes,
yeah,
that's great. Yeah, I saw the body. In fact, I particularly saw two relatively large protrusions at the front. But maybe I need to go back to your tattoo and spend some quality time with it, Doug.
Yeah. No, it has no arms.
No arms, obviously.
Like one arm's been ripped off because there's wires and stuff coming off it and stuff. And yeah, no, it's quite good. It didn't take that long to do that part. It was about 5 hours. And
Doug, I'll just ask the obvious question, because obviously this will be a reference for Thomas shortly going forward. So how did you make a decision that this is the cyberpunk tattoo moment for me in 2023?
Well, I'm 50 in November, so I thought I'd get a tattoo for my 50th.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, firstly, that's not even possible.
As you do.
As you do. So Thomas, bodily augmentation is obviously quite of great interest to you and of great interest to me. Have we got any sense of what percentage of the population now has a tattoo? Have you got any advice or data sets on that? Because I'm terribly interested.
I don't. In terms of like frequency, I will say that I did have the opportunity to interview an amazing like up and coming scholar who is a tattoo artist for like 10 years, and then she's going into psychology to study tattoos as like a part of the healing arts to like complement therapy. And one thing that stood out to me when I was speaking with her is that she kind of positions tattoos as like a gendered thing. So like for women, it's like a reclaiming of bodily autonomy. And then for men, it's like a rite of passage or like a cornerstone throughout the life that culture has not had for men. Or a place for men to like become men or to like experience major milestones. And so tattoos kind of serve like in those two functions, which was way cool to listen to her talk about.
And so clearly, Doug, you see why Thomas is in my life, because he has now provided a whole discursive structure about what you're doing on your arm.
Yeah.
I'm terribly excited by that. So, Doug, we're going to be celebrating your 50th birthday, and what a way you are doing it. So, colleagues, good morning. We've got Lorraine in. We've got Ian in. Oh, Ian, I love that door. Ian, I'm obsessed by your door. I love doors with the, what are they on? What? No, they're not enclaves. That's something else. Alcatraves?
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of engraved into the door somehow.
I'm a big fan of that. So Lorraine's in. Oh, Liam.
Hello.
Liam, good evening.
Good evening. Hello, everybody.
Right, so can I say 2 horsemen of the zombie apocalypse are with us. Thomas and Liam, I met during COVID and they changed my life. So my dearest friends on the universe, they changed me. So the idea that we've sort of got 2 of the 4 horsemen with us is a blessing. So it's great to see you. And I just want to do a shout out to, I know Adrian's getting himself organised. Adrian, good morning. Do you want to say hi, because you were so intense last week? I was leaving you alone. How are you going, Adrian?
Yeah, no, fine, thanks. Really good. Yourself?
Oh, look, good, mate. And can I say, one of the reasons I came back to Australia was because I missed the yeah, nah. And we understand what that means. The rest of the world does not.
Yeah.
So I thank you for that. But mate, going well, everything great on the thesis and everything great?
Yep, getting there, doing the do.
Fantastic, mate. Well, you and I will stay connected today. Now, it's great that Liam's here, because Liam and I have talked about this a lot. And it's bizarre that Liam's here, but Maeve particularly wanted us to talk about this week dissemination and how we configure strategies for research dissemination right now today, noting that COVID was, basically 2 years ago, and we're still sort of COVID. There's no such thing as post-COVID, but how do we disseminate our research in a way that's important for us? So, of course, Liam is living that at the moment. Thomas is producing more research than basically entire departments. And Doug, I want Doug, when he starts his PhD, to have an entire plan before he starts for dissemination. And of course, Mary's got this whole online community about how we're going to disseminate this. So, Maeve, do you want to start us off and just talk about why it matters to you? And then we'll open this up to everybody else about what they're writing and where they're writing and for whom.
Okay. Well, it matters to me because it's always mattered to me to communicate. And I think there's a really deep part of me that's, why do this if I'm not going to attempt to disseminate it in whatever's available to me? So for me, it's really integral and foundation. I'm not doing the work so that I can sit here quietly and go, oh, I did that. Isn't that good? I'm not much, that'll be good, but I'm not much interested in that. I'm interested in what did I do with all that work that I did one way or another. And I think that's broader for everybody. And also something that's come up in the last few weeks is making income streams. So I'm interested in it from that point of view as well. Nodding, quite a bit of nodding. I do gallery views, so I see all the nods at once rather than the individuals.
Yes.
And, so, yeah, obviously that's something that interests other people too.
Yeah, and look, there's so much to say about this dissemination. We did a whole gig on dissemination, did we, with a lot of the people on this call about 2 or 3 years ago. And I sort of started with a triangle. When I talk about dissemination in my own life, I have a triangle, and that triangle is content, platform, and audience. So they're the bits of the triangle: content, platform, and audience. And in content, you can put information or knowledge, if you like. Knowledge is classier. But what we need to do is actually start in our daily life with who is our audience. And I think we don't do that enough, Thomas. We need to say who in an ideal universe would we like to read and engage with this research? And I've said read because there is the refereed article, book chapter component of dissemination, but there's also the journalism, Mary blog component of that for a different configuration of audience. And then there is the multimodal component. And I've seen Paul here. Good evening, Paul. The multimodal component, whereby are we interested in podcasting? Is sound alone strong? Or do we want sound and vision with the complexity of that? and making determinations on that basis. So, Maeve, is that helping? That's where we sort of start, colleagues. You know, who is the audience? So, Lorraine, if I was going to ask you the tough, hello, good morning, Lorraine.
Good morning.
So, Lorraine, if I was going to ask you who's the audience for your work, what would you say?
Possibly policymakers, intervention programs, people that create. So I'm hoping that my research leads to some insight into developing intervention programs and support programs for a specific cohort. So working in the veteran space, PTSD, looking at the role peer support plays, that's what my PhD's around, for a specific war veteran. So they don't tend to align very well with typical mainstream services. They seem to be out there on their own. So yeah, I'm seeing what I can learn from that to better inform treatment services.
Now, Lorraine, I went straight to, I'm so inspired by you. I sort of cry through, whenever you talk through your research, I sort of cry my way through it. But Lorraine, can I say, as you were speaking about who you believe the audience is, for me, the audience there must be working with a platform that's what I would call non-intrusive.
Yes.
So it is pushed to them, but they do not have to partake of it. They partake of information on their own terms, in their own way. Now, for me, Lorraine, sound and sonic media is the archetype of that. I describe sound, and we'll go to Paul and all my wonderful colleagues, because we live in the sound zone, but sound is like marinade around a steak, Lorraine. So you got the steak, but sound fits in to everybody's lives, and it fits in a way that's appropriate for us at a particular time. So people can walk with the sound, they can have it in their car, and it's private, of course. So it really is the soundtrack for their lives on their own terms. And the gift of sound and sonic semiotic systems, if you want to get all posh about it, is that they directly connect with a person's life, with what they need at a particular time. So they're creating all these very precious, intimate, granular and close relationships on their own terms. So for social work, for allied health, for all sorts of helping professions and disciplines and paradigms, sonic only material can work very well. Have I convinced you, or do you disagree with me?
I was, as you were speaking, I was just thinking of my lovely dulcet tones, and I don't think it'd come across very well. I'm a bit like, yeah, no, mate, but more of a Cockney accent. All right.
All right. I love you. See, but I think you've got a magnificent voice, and it's not about, I think all of us.
I like your accent.
Yeah, I was going to say, well said. I think all of us that are of my age, and of course no one's of my age because people my age are dead, but people of my age, Lorraine, had all that sort of early 1980s FM. And do you remember the few women that were allowed on FM radio? It was like, hello, I'm really a bloke.
Speaking very properly, yes.
I'm really a bloke, but if you close your eyes, you might just think I'm a lady. Right. And so we all have that notion, particularly as women, and we'll talk, about men, non-binary identifying colleagues, trans colleagues, but we have a notion about what an attractive female FM voice is. Right. And so, Lorraine, actually what the research shows is it's the diversity of voices. People want the diversity of formats and the diversity of voices, because that's authentic and real and speaks to from one human to another. So don't you question your voice, Magda. Unbelievable. Now, I'll go straight to Paul because he's the expert in this, and straight to Ian because Ian, that beard was moving, Ian. That beard was moving through this. So, Paul, do you disagree with me? Because obviously I'm writing a couple of sound pieces at the moment and living in Sound Zone and so inspired by it. But what's your perspective on sound and audiences?
No, I think you're right. Sound has an emotive capture for the audience, and it's one of the easiest ways, I think, if you're not face to face, to build a rapport with someone, because they can hear the real you, and they can hear your breath, your all the elements that make you. And that's the benefit about sound, where video, you can kind of hide behind the romanticism of it a bit, or arguably you can hide behind the romanticism of it, where audio is your true self. So you build a better connection.
Oh, I love that. And Lorraine, if you then want to, so it can be, if you like, the first mitigating stage for your dissemination. And from the sonic material in the information section, it can lead to further material. So for your particular audience, checklists, help support sheets, further services and so forth, and the research that's available to make them realize they're not alone. So it can start with the voice and it doesn't have to finish there.
Thank you.
Oh, that's brilliant. Ian, what do you think? I'm going to do an Ian here. I was just going to like mirror you, Ian. Ian, tell me everything. Is this a vibe for you, or where are you on sound and dissemination?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is my first time joining you, so yeah. So nice to meet everybody. And my sort of background is in performance studies and performance. I'm a vocal performer myself, and so yes, sound and music are my thing. And so you can express so much, sound as performance can connect with people, with audiences in it's such a sort of an emotional level, and it's super connected to memory as well. When you make those connections with your favorite songs or songs that you haven't heard for decades, and then it brings back those senses, like you're almost there and you can remember what you were doing and how you felt on an affective sort of level. And I don't think there's anything else that's really maybe taste, but with in academia, I think sound cultures but I hadn't thought about it from my research is all about dance and singing and music, but I hadn't thought about it from the point of view of disseminating my own work, actually using it as a tool. So it's very interesting for me to listen to what you're saying today.
Oh, and look, Ian, it is. I was one of the first academic podcasters before it was like popular through murder mysteries. But I've been doing academic podcasts since about 2007. And it's just been sort of I originally did it, to be honest with you, Ian, as part of a universal design variable. I was writing for the Times Higher and colleagues with some visual impairments before screens were as fabulous as they are now and speaking. It was a way for me to say, right, well, here's the article, but if you're not able to read text in a particular way, here's the sonic accompaniment so you're not missing out on anything. So it started as part of my universal design variable, and then it went on to very different disseminations, Ian, and our lovely Sue Charlton. I was just about to mention Sue, and then suddenly I see Dr. Sue Charlton's on the call, Ian. So I realised, post the second wave and breadth of podcasting, that something was happening when I recorded a podcast with Sue on paediatric physiotherapy. And you think, right, well, that's a specialist audience, so a few people might listen to that. And it ended up just moving beyond 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, 80,000 listeners to this podcast with me talking with Sue, an expert in the field, about hip dysplasia and about the management of paediatric physiotherapy, which most people have never even heard of. And this podcast has continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. And there is the Queen herself. And then Sue, of course, has written all the refereed articles. So we referred out to that research from the podcast. But for people that didn't even know it was a thing, if you like, Ian, it suddenly became a thing. Now, Sue, I don't know if you want to speak to your own experience of that. But Sue, we're talking about sound and dissemination and what a podcast can do for research to find an audience. Have you got a vibe on that, Sue? Because I was talking about you.
Yes. Look, it made a very big difference to what I was doing, and it made a difference in two ways. First of all, it made me understand more what I was doing, because I was trying to voice it instead of just thinking. Because I think when you think things, you can think that you've said things that you haven't said.
That happens to me every day. I talk with myself. So
yes. Yeah. And I think you think much more broadly than you speak to begin with, and to actually have to succinctly put that into words made things much clearer to me as well. And then it made it easier to understand what I was trying to explain to other people.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. And it really kicked your research on as well. So it has an andragogical function in terms of supervision that we'll talk about with Maeve in a second. But if I can go to the legendary Liam, the horseman of the zombie apocalypse. Liam, you've got very specific audiences for your remarkable research. Now, I wonder if sound would work for your stakeholders, or if it's too slow, because sonic media is a slower medium that we may want to talk about. But does sound have a role, do you think, in youth studies, criminology, sociology for target stakeholders?
Absolutely. I speak with Maeve about this via email all the time. Maeve, my soul sister. Hello. Good to see Thomas as well. Hello. Yeah, and actually it's so random that we mentioned this because it's been on my mind constantly. I was at a research away day at work yesterday for REF 2028. I know. Who's thinking that far in the future? Who knew?
Mate, I can't look beyond lunch, mate. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Same. And I actually mentioned, well, the joy of podcasting with your legendary example, but also how it can elevate research environment. So it's a tangible object which can elevate research environment via the digital sphere. And a few people were looking at me with, the kind of raised eyebrows, like, wow, that's a silly idea. And I was like, no, I think it's great. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's have a talk for an hour and just hash it through. And I think it would be so helpful as well for youth studies as well. Look, youth studies have done this for years. And the sonic medium is so important, especially to our participants in our research who might have literacy issues, who might have other impairments. So this is good. I think it's good practice.
And so, Liam, you've just changed my life now in terms of the research environment, which is crucial, REF, and I would argue is crucial to all of us. We don't think about that enough. You have to in England because it's going to be assessed. But the thing about sound is it provides a context around your research. It provides the story of your research. So another great way to use it is we pump out an article. Thanks for playing. There's an article. And then you go one more step in the dissemination. You gather perhaps your team together, the lab in the case of Professor Quinton, or just me talking to myself, which, just endlessly because no one else will talk with me. And then you actually explain how the research was formed, why the research was formed, why it matters. So you provide the context around the research, and that resonates. It makes it so rich for our audiences. So it's not just a value add. It's saying here's an article, and it actively is working to find an audience for that research.
I'm going to take it to my next place. So like you, Tara, I've regenerated at another institution. So yeah, I'm going to take it to my next place when I start in September.
I'm so proud of it. I mean, Liam, you'll end up Vice Chancellor very, very shortly. There's no doubt.
Oh, no, I don't. No.
You need to be. You're exactly what we need on this. So Liam, you're amazing. But Thomas, can I move to you for a second about providing the context for research? Because you're writing in some really complicated, I'll say controversial, but I don't think they're controversial. But some people, Satan, might think they're controversial. So Thomas, what's your perspective on, look, here's this research that is very counterintuitive for some citizens. How could sound broaden out the parameters and the literacies of your research, do you think?
I think it's something that I'm wanting to start to move into specifically for my research. So I've kind of been podcasting. We're coming up on 3 years with my colleague right now. We focused on other people's research and kind of he and I bantering about like different theories and research and stuff within the field. And so I really want to move into being able to like explain myself whenever I put stuff out there. Because I think it would be helpful in a way that like I noticed that when I get picked up by like the Sun or the New York Post or whatever, I don't read the comments, obviously, but it would be helpful rather than pointing to like a paywalled research article that there's some sort of mechanism where the audience can like then listen to me like justify why I had like participants like guess the personality of different dick pics for an hour and why that was important for whatever reason. And so that way they kind of get a sense of like, okay, this is where I'm coming from. Here's me as the author to like put into the research. But I also think that the research can also stand by itself too, right? And so like, I think a part of it is, I think it functions more helpfully in terms of like, me as a scholar getting paid by the public interacting with the public and less about me producing research that then goes into like the literature reviews and pushes knowledge forward. I think those might be two different areas that I would use podcasting for.
Oh, look, I think so, Thomas. And I think you've also shown us where something else is of use too. The video abstract that was a real big thing about 3 years ago. And the research has demonstrated that if you do a video abstract, it will increase the citations of that article. But they're short, they're under 2 minutes. So it's basically a piece to camera. Hi, this is me. This is what the research has done. Thanks for playing, right? So bang, and then linking to the article. So I think that has a role for colleagues and allows the research to stand on its own terms. But I think if we're interested in widening out the audience to different groups, I think sound slows it down a bit and also allows us, as you said, Thomas, to, as scholars, to answer back. Because at the moment we're in such volatile environments, you just can't read the comments or else you'll lose the will to live, really. And I've been lucky, Thomas. I've been lucky. I mean, as we all know, I know Dr. Leanne McRae was terrified when the Jordan Peterson book came out that I would like the car would be bombed and I'd be people would be attacking me in train stations and stuff. And look, it's been pretty good. There's been sort of the usual suspects that have gone, I'm really a man, and like obviously I am. But there's been that sort of group, but that's about all. So I've been lucky, but I think other colleagues that are really doing the challenging work are getting it in the neck, and they shouldn't, and providing strategies for new explanations and you to configure your own context in these volatile times, I think might be quite useful.
I'll also say that I regularly stalk this Reddit subreddit called Podcast Guest Exchange. And so whenever like my expertise shows up on there, I immediately DM that person, no matter how big or small that podcast is.
Fantastic. See, and that's intellectual generosity. The thing is, it's often called narrow casting, as you know, Thomas. And the point is, therefore, it might get 5 people listening to it, and that's great. It might get 50,000, and that's great. It's narrow casting because it's not about the number of people that listen. It's about the impact it has on those people that do listen.
Mm-hmm.
You are amazing, Thomas. And by the way, do seek Thomas out, not only on Twitter, but the podcast is unbelievable. I walk with the podcast most Sundays, so it is a fantastic entity. Fantastic. Mary, I was going to go straight to you, Mary. Is any of this of use for you in terms of indigeneity, Indigenous research and dissemination, or not?
It is, but I have to say, as a web developer, of course, everyone focuses on what they're skilled at. And honestly, it really is very easy to set up your own personal website with your own URL on WordPress. It's you have free templates, you can manage the comments, and I think it's a much better forum than putting stuff on Facebook or Instagram, etc., where the comments are completely unmoderated.
Yes.
You have total control over what happens with the contents, whether they go live or not. And honestly, for the research I'm doing, which is a bit contentious because it's a colonial massacre, I have got comments that are interesting that I would never publish, but they do direct where I need to focus my research because they're highly critical. And it tells me in advance what criticism I'm going to get when my research comes out.
I think
so it can be quite useful. But you also can control the negativity.
Look, exactly right, Mary. I think that's incredibly important. Having your own website is good. I've had mine for 25 years. And I tend to still run mine, Mary, though, as a pretty static entity, because all the other platforms I choose are the dynamic ones. Mine's more of a here is the the mothership. Here is the mothership where you can deal with stuff, but the other variables are more interactive. But Mary, I think your point's a great one, that I certainly always manage the comments, because if I'm talking to a student and somebody says something terrible to the student in the comments, the student should not read that, because they don't deserve that. So I'll always manage those comments. But as you've said, reading them and going, oh right, so that particular group of the alt-right have an issue with that. So let's take that on board and think about how we craft a response to that. Oh, that's brilliant. Doug, are we helping? Is this, I want to sort of create a dissemination model for you as you start, Doug. So
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, WordPress is a good place to start, because I have started there in the past, but then killed it off because I get bored with the platform and not know what to put on there. So that's the big thing. So at least with a PhD, you've got a focus point on which to build and extrapolate your findings or research and everything like that. Podcasts, possibly not, because I don't like my voice, and I don't think I speak clear enough. So
Doug, you do.
I might not do vocal pieces.
Doug, you've got to do what you're comfortable with. So the first thing is, this is your dissemination. So remember, it is your content and then your audience and your platform. So you decide what's useful, but never let underconfidence, Doug,
Yes.
be a determinant of the platform that you choose, right?
All right.
Because there's not a diversity, there's not a great diversity of voices out there, and you deserve that. You deserve that, right?
Yeah.
But as you rightly said, start where you're comfortable. So start with WordPress, and the PhD will give you that regular content that just sort of what about. Let me tell you what I had for lunch. The Insta people's like, here's my lunch picture. Right. And so moving beyond that is crucial. No, fantastic. Yeah. You're the best. Ian, where are you on this now, mate? Have I lost Ian?
No, I'm here.
Oh, great.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, it was fascinating to listen to everybody. And when you mentioned diversity before, and how this can appeal to different types of people who process things differently. I was just really quickly going to share my experience, because I have ADHD, severe ADHD, and it's managed, but I find it personally sometimes very difficult to read academic prose, and so listening to things sometimes helps me greatly to follow what's going on, understand what's I lose sometimes lose track of what's going on, and then sometimes I can't express myself brilliantly. But Tara, your video, when I was finishing writing my PhD thesis, I was despairing about the conclusion. I was completely lost. I had no idea what to do. And I watched your video about conclusion, making a good conclusion. And one thing that you suggested doing was recording yourself talking about your conclusion. And that it just opened up a whole new world for me to understand what I was actually trying to say, and made me think about the people who are receiving this information as well. That might be a little bit off topic, but I just wanted to point that out.
Ian, it's spot on topic. You see, Maeve's going to be straight in there as well. That's absolutely crucial. So, Ian, when you get stuck, we forget, I think, how odd it is to write. I'm doing work on this at the moment. We think how odd that is. Like we're sitting on our clacker. The human body is not meant to be sitting down. And then we do weird things with our hands like this. And we're just assuming that this and the body and the hands and everything and the technology are all going to come together and we're going to produce something. Well, there's too many variables to make that work day after day after day. So that's why multimodality is so useful, because we can move between the platforms. freshen ourselves up. We're a different person every day. Satan. We're a different person every day. And so it allows us to move between the platforms that suit us. And the thing about sound, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks as well, is that it gives us new vocabulary, new ways of thinking about sentences. And then when we speak the word, so in other words, I'm shattered, my brain's shattered, what's going on, don't know. And you know what, just put your phone in front of you, press record, and what am I doing? What am I doing? And answer your own question. And that's often the way through. But Ian, you're an absolute rock star. And part of what universal design is for citizens as much as students is that students can have multiple pathways. And that's first years right through to PhD students, multiple pathways through material. And that's important. So do I need to go to Maeve? Because obviously this is the Maeve moment. This is the Maeve moment in terms of sound and andragogy. Do you want to go there, Maeve?
Yes. I was answering Kate, who can't get her visuals to work, so just let her know that we know she's there, and all is well. So yeah, for me there's multiple issues that come up there. The biggest one is you know, the academe, which has been sitting there like a sort of grand dinosaur for, you know, not you, eternities. And you know, what is it, 1,000 years for Trinity and some of those colleges, or I don't know,
1268, 1269 for some of the early ones.
Thank you. And so for me it's all about inclusivity, and I have a grandson who's ASD. I have several family members who are ADHD. This theme is everywhere for me, and really an essential part of thinking, you know, inclusivity, disability, what does abilities look like, the whole, you know, the whole thing. And no doubt many people that are listening to this, or that listen to podcasts or Tara's podcast or whatever, are right in there. And, you know, the point I was just mentioning briefly to my soul brother, Liam, you know, the great idea about his ideas are that if he's podcasting and it's to youth, and youth have disabilities, circumstances, poverty, let's always include poverty, they are going to own a smartphone. They may not be able to afford a laptop. They may not be able to afford a whole range of things, but they're going to have a smartphone. So if you've got a podcast disseminating out there, whether it all these different issues that we're raising, the podcast is going to go out, and people are going to hear it and be nurtured by that.
And I think that, Maeve, let's talk about that, because obviously you are one of the few, and I've had a few wonderful students that have done this, but you are literally, and I'm using that word accurately, podcasting your way through the PhD. We did it as a form of sonic note-taking, but we're about 10 in. I think Maeve 10 has been released. I think Maeve 10 Despair. I think Maeve 10 Despair.
More like 20. We're on
19
or 20.
Is it Maeve 20 Despair? So, yeah, I tell you, I've just skipped a whole year. Unbelievable. So Maeve, you know, thinking that we're 20 in, what's that done for you or to you, or how has the sonic context, using Thomas's argument, impacted on you?
Using Thomas's argument. What was the key of your argument there, Thomas?
Oh, well, no, Thomas was just arguing that it provides a way for the research to be explained to new audiences.
Oh, yes, totally love that. I think it has blown my mind in a way, because it's the kind of thing that, you know, I knew that I don't know if I did know that Sue had a podcast with you, but I certainly know of other people who've had podcasts with you. So I think some part of my brain might have, which is why I'm saying to you, Liam, keep wanting to get here. Sorry, I've got my water quickly.
We need Liam here. We need to get Liam here.
Yes, and I think wanting is a very useful tool in the broader universe. Sometimes you can't make what you want happen, but you can still keep wanting it. It's free. No one can charge you or tax you for it. You can want away as much as you like. So yeah, I think I was aware of podcasting, but I wasn't aware of the confidence it would give me. That is kind of an immeasurable for me thing. So I would highly recommend that. Thomas is nodding, to you all. And there's just so much to say. A friend has contacted me because she listens to the digital office hours and the Right Club, and that's Catherine Hardwick Franco. And she said to me, I was talking with her about post-PhD, because to motivate myself, I'm entirely into thinking about what will I do next. My brain works like that. Halfway through, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do next? So I love the idea that people don't think past lunchtime, but personally, I'm right out there. 2028, sure, I'm thinking about that. So that's just how the brain works. Everyone that knows me well will comment on what are you thinking about now, and sometimes it's now, but not that often. I'm dreaming my future, and
Yes.
I highly commend that. Lots of things that have happened to me that have appeared impossible, but I didn't stop dreaming that future, because it's mine and it's in my own head. I don't normally talk about it this much,
Yes.
but so the podcast has really fast-tracked how I think and what I do, and it's also given me that possible confidence where I think, oh, well, when I'm finished, it'll come to an end, you'll have other students that you'll podcast with, and I go, okay, what will I do then? And I think, I love this. I will work out a way to podcast. I will come and exchange with you, Thomas. I will come and invite Liam to be a guest on my podcast, and I would not have had those thoughts if we weren't doing it. So I think it has transformed what my income streams can be, which is an issue that I'd like to mention, whether it's today or not. But I think all of it is transformative. And I didn't know that, not to the extent of the feeling world. And that was what Catherine mentioned. She said, we really need your emotions connected to reflection.
Yes.
And that was what she was saying, because she can feel my emotions. I'm not trying to pretend that something. And I think that speaks to the key thing that I think is happening is you have to be ultra authentic. And that's when they're working, you're being authentic, because people are imagining, and I've had other friends tell me this, they're imagining they're sitting at a table in the conversation.
And May, thank you for that. We've got so many people, hundreds that are watching this Saturday morning and so forth. And some of our colleagues are, and I must not get too emotional, but some of our colleagues are very isolated and are in regional, rural, remote areas and are away from their family a lot of the time. And so we, in this little family that we're creating here every week, we're providing company for people. And I'm not a person to ever underestimate the importance of company. And that's great. So Maeve, you're a legend. Paul, can I just go there, because you and I might cite Maeve from what she's just said there. Do you remember the media literacy debates and the importance of how, for students particularly, the production of media and the consumption of media are so aligned, and the literacy is developed through producing to be consumed?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to be watching back and stealing some of that wording, Maeve. That's really useful.
But it is interesting that media literacy, Maeve, was about we as students, we as scholars, we produce the media, and then we learn how media operates that enables citizenship.
Indeed, and I wouldn't have known that. It's an experiential thing.
Oh, it absolutely is. Unbelievable. And Lorraine, you're at sea. You're not alone in your accent here, are you, my darling?
No, I can hear a few Northern England. Yeah, just different accents. And it really just warms your heart. I love living in Australia. So blessed to be here. Absolutely love it. But yeah, when I hear one of my own, I'm like,
yeah. And look, that's what we want. And that's my point to Doug, is the diversity of the accents are incredibly helpful, because all sorts of people out there, we need to hear more and diverse accents rather than fewer and sort of 1987 FM accents, right? Can I go to Professor Quinton for a moment? He's dressed to suit his back office wall, which is always a bit challenging. You almost disappear, Jamie. You almost, Jamie, before you met me, you never really used sound in supervision and podcasting and so forth. And we did with Queen Narelle. We need to do a big shout out to really the light of our lives, Narelle. But Jamie, how, has podcasting transformed and sound transformed how you supervise?
So I didn't use podcasting, but I did introduce audio feedback as a mechanism for providing extra information to students on their submitted work through using Adobe Acrobat's audio feature. And I found that to be incredibly effective, much better than students seeing, handwritten notes on a page saying, it's great, 7 out of 10. By letting the student into the mind of the person marking their work. With regard to supervision, as Tara's just said, through Maeve and Narelle in particular, taking notes at the ends of meetings through the podcast, I find it to be incredibly valuable. And I was going to say to Ian before, we don't tend to listen to our own podcasts. Might have been Doug actually. Sorry, Doug. We don't tend to replay them and listen to them ad nauseum anyway. But it is a good way of taking notes that is different than what you do when you write things down on the page. And I think what it does is it contributes to a more comprehensive picture of everything. Because things like emotion, sentiment, attitude, position, you don't get to capture those when you read written text as easily as you do when you're listening to a person emote. Maeve's writing this down.
Yes, Maeve is writing this, but I think that's very strong. And Jamie, I use that great auditory feedback thing that you used to be able to click on Word. I think they've got rid of that button now, haven't they, Jamie?
Have they? I'll have to check that.
Yeah, but for me, audio feedback's crucial. I think it was Thomas who said, was it Thomas or was it Doug that said that students are challenged perhaps reading written feedback or engaging with written feedback, but the sonic engagement, because it intervenes. It has that, as we started with Lorraine, it has that sort of marination component where you can just sort of sit and deal with the feedback on your own terms, but it does change the steak. It does change as a marinade. It changes how one engages with information and ideas. So I think that's unbelievable. Jamie, would you do it with all students, or do you think there are particular disciplines that it's particularly useful?
Yeah, so my thinking on that is more about the willingness of the participants. So it's got to be seen of value by all, or it's not going to happen.
Yes, and if a student is underconfident, so you heard Doug this morning, so Doug and I will have to have alternative andragogical supervisory protocols because Doug says, I don't like my voice.
Well, so sorry, I'm going to just jump in and say, at the moment, the thinking is that a podcast is a small number of people, but we're actually recording a podcast right now with 16 or 17 people, right?
Yes. And of course, a stack of people listen to this too. They actually turn the video off and they go for a walk with this information. So, and that's the thing about video can be very busy and it's complicated. And, it has a series of facades in terms of Maeve's point about authenticity. Video rarely is, because like we've brushed our hair, hopefully, and we've cleaned our teeth, and some of us have put some polyfiller on and hope for the best. Yes, Doug, you put your hat on, mate. So, if Doug's got his hat on, we're moving forward in life, right? So but these layers add inauthenticity to us, whereas in many ways the voice probably doesn't lie, I don't think. Yeah. Maybe. Can I go straight to Gay? Gay is talking to us. Gay, talk to me. How are you going? Good morning, Gay. You superstar, you. Talk to us, Gay.
Hello, Tara. You're talking about podcasts, which is really interesting to me because I've never done anything with them because I have hearing loss. For instance, if somebody gave me audio feedback on a piece of writing, I may not catch everything. So although it's great for some people, it's not so great for others. So it's part of different learning styles and all that. So I think possibly it's something that you need to discuss with the person you're doing it with.
Gay, I think that's a tremendous point because it's about who's the audience, right? who's the audience, and that determines the platform you select. So that's crucial. And Gay, one of the reasons I started those damn videos all those years ago, because I'm a sonic person. So my platform of choice is always sound. But why I went to video was because I was aware of the age of the students at the particular university I was at formerly, and that there were some hearing impairment issues. And so therefore me speaking to the camera and reasonably close up variable allowed people to, of course, do some lip reading, right? And of course, that's why, and much to my amusement, people gave me feedback on that. Like when you wear the red lipstick or the burgundy lipstick, that helps us a lot. So I've always made sure in the videos I wear the red lipstick or the burgundy lipstick, so it helps people read the lips, right? And so
one of the reasons that I am, and I'm sad that your latest book is purely an audiobook.
yeah,
I would have liked to have read it rather than tried to listen to it.
I know. And so, but see, that's the decision we make. Whenever we make a decision about a platform, Gay, we're also making a decision about who the audience isn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's so you've always got to balance. So here's this bit of information, and that's why we never assume this information goes to everybody, because it can't. And when we make a platform selection, we are deciding who is not going to engage with that information.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Now, somebody put their wonderful hand up. Who had their wonderful hand? Oh, Thomas, straight in, Thomas. Go, mate.
Liam put his hand up first.
Liam did. Oh, it was Liam. But okay, well, we'll go to Thomas, then back to beautiful Liam.
Oh, sounds good. Speaking about limited audience, the edited collection that I'm writing the Satan book chapter for right now, the editor sat down with every single author and did a podcast with us about our proposals and what we were thinking about with those proposals, and then shared those only to the authors in the collection. So that way we could start thinking about, as we were drafting, how our particular chapter fit with the whole piece.
Thomas, could you congratulate your editor? That has changed my life today, because as someone who has edited a lot of books, but also written a chapter in a book where I'm sitting there going, I don't really know how this chapter fits in at all, you know, and often I write the weird chapter, you know, I write the pimple on the butt of the world chapter. So like, wow, what was I thinking? That chapter doesn't. So I'm invariably the first chapter or the last chapter, right, Thomas? Because people go, I don't know what she's doing either, girlfriend. So we actually get rid of it at the start, or, you know, future work, Brabazon will handle that, because we've got no idea what that chapter's about. But Thomas, as you've said, if you have those podcasts, we can immerse ourselves in the context of the book.
It was amazing in my drafting process, because I would go back to both my podcast and everybody else's, because I go, all right, who's the author that sits in front of me? Who's the author that goes behind me? Okay, let's listen to their episodes real quick so I can think about like how mine moves us from this one to the next one.
That's changed how I will write edited collections for the rest of my life, Thomas. That is unbelievable. Amazing. Straight to legendary Liam. Liam, brother, where are we at, mate?
Hello, it's just bringing back so many beautiful memories of my PhD Viva, where speaking with you and colleagues during the 4 Horsemen of the Zombie Apocalypse actually really prepared me for the Viva, you know, to get confident in speaking through issues. And I also say this as well to, you know, if any of my dissertation students, master's dissertation students are watching, like, this is why I get you to speak through the issues. It's like, we need confidence at speaking through those issues before you commit to writing it. Because what you're going to know, you know, you don't know what you don't know. Also, another observation, I was speaking to Mary, the librarian from Bolton University, and she remembers you so well from like 10, 12 years ago. And she said, like, you were one of the first people to actually show an interest in the library staff, you know, and speak through the issues and go on the podcast and be confident. You know, so seeing that genealogy of your regenerations through the universities and how it's changed, but how it's empowered. And that was a random conversation in South Manchester 6 months ago. So, yeah, there we go.
Because sound travels in unusual ways, unbelievably unusual ways. And of course, we know through wonderful Jane's work, it's like water. I always use sound and water as the metaphor, because it stops and then it finds its way through, and it finds its way through. And that's how sound operates. Oh, Liam, I can't tell you what that means to me. So incredibly powerful and important that. Wow. Jane, do you want to speak on sound?
Thank you, everyone. Yes, I had my 3MT in 2021 when people say, oh, no, non-native English speaker, there's no point of joining the 3MT. No one would understand your language. And then you're doing about the lived experience of women in Vietnam. Who wants to listen? So I was hesitant at first, but Ginger Gorman happened to be at UC at that moment, and she gave me media literacy, and I proceeded with the 3MT and won the People's Choice Award that year. So the sound changed my life. And I think that, yeah, we all benefit from the media literacy. It sounds scary at first, but then it's actually very practical for our research dissemination.
Because so much of our formal education, Jane, focuses on, reading little squiggly things on a piece of paper or on a screen, right? And think about how little time we spend listening to a diversity of accents, a diversity of views. And so our literacy, our sonic literacy is often lagged. But it's not a disaster, because we actively seek out these different ways of speaking and thinking, then we can enlarge our auditory culture, right? Unbelievable. And as Liam said, and as you've said so brilliantly, Jane, if we do oral examinations, if you're interested in a PhD oral exam, one of the reasons, I came from this, and Liam mentioned the wonderful University of Bolton, and I started podcasting when I was at Brighton, Liam, and one of the reasons I did it is to prepare my students for their oral exam. And I used to run mock oral exams, mock questions, so they would hear the questions over and over again and be able to answer them in different ways. I would record them so they would hear that, and of course disseminate more widely so people would hear what an oral exam sounded like. So speak, and everything we've done since then. So Maeve could go into an oral exam without any problem at all, because she's done 20 to spare. She's done 20 sessions already explaining her research. And I'm conscious of time, colleagues. The final point I'll finish off with, and I'll sort of summon, we're doing deaths and despair and all the rest of it at the moment. I will summon, of course, the late, great Mick Winter, who I did podcasts with, and Mick died about a month before. He had a full thesis, but died about a month before he was meant to submit his thesis. And Steve and I managed to get that thesis as a posthumous PhD through to examiners. And both the examiners expressed, because they listened to all, I think there were 37 podcasts. They listened to all 37 podcasts, and Liam, they could confirm research and academic integrity because they heard the development of the ideas. So they were able to, in full consciousness, say, this is Mick's thesis, his research, and he was accorded straight through 2-1 straight through by British examiners who were used to oral exams. So all these wonderful things, as Jane has said, sound moves us forward in really interesting ways. So who knew we'd go there today? That's been our digital office hours from the Maeve request. Maeve, we might be moving to alternative income streams next week, if that's useful for people, but I'll always come, if you have questions, give them to me. Otherwise, Maeve will give us give me a topic, and we'll have a party. Fantastic. Colleagues, thank you so much for your time. Sue, love you forever. Jane, you're the best. And colleagues, see a lot of you at Right Club very shortly. Much love. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Liam, love you forever. You're the best one. See you, brother. Love you. Bless him.